inside, the destruction was even more complete. Furniture had been reduced to kindling, scattered throughout rooms like the aftermath of an explosion. The kitchen table where Margaret and I had shared 40 years of meals was nothing but splinters. Her grandmother's china cabinet lay on its side, the delicate porcelain ground to powder beneath what must have been enormous feet. Even the cast iron wood stove had been overturned, its chimney pipe torn from the ceiling and bent into impossible angles. But it was the systematic nature of the destruction that truly chilled me. This wasn't random vandalism or the work of natural disasters. Every family photograph had been deliberately shattered, the frames torn apart, and the images scattered like confetti. Margaret's jewelry box had been opened and its contents strewn across the bedroom floor, not stolen, just destroyed for the sake of destruction. Books that had been in my family for generations were torn apart, their pages carpeting the living room in a layer of literary snow. The stairs to the second floor had been ripped from the wall, leaving only jagged remnants of what had once been a beautiful hand-carved banister. Upstairs, the bedrooms told the same story of methodical demolition. My clothes had been shredded, the dresser drawers pulled out and smashed against the walls. Even the mattresses had been torn open, their stuffing scattered like the entrails of some massive beast. In what had been Margaret's sewing room, I found evidence that made my blood run cold. Massive handprints pressed into the drywall, each finger clearly defined in the white powder. The prints were easily twice the size of my own hands, with a span that suggested fingers of impossible length and strength. But most disturbing was their placement. Some were 8 feet off the floor, others pressed into the ceiling itself, as if whatever made them had been moving across the walls and roof like some enormous spider.
He got the pictures. They clear pictures though. It's not that blurry shit. He got pictures of them. He got video also of it attacking his chickens, looking inside his trailer, his home, all type of shit. It's incredible. But I have a lot of these footages, films. I want to start talking about this shit.
The basement revealed the final horror. My workshop, where I'd spent countless hours crafting furniture and repairing equipment, had been completely destroyed. Tools that had been in my family for generations were twisted into unrecognizable shapes. My father's anvil, which weighed over 200 pounds, had been hurled across the room with such force that it had embedded itself 6 inches into the concrete wall. The workbench, built from solid oak timbers, had been reduced to splinters no larger than toothpicks. But it was what I found in the corner that finally broke my spirit. Margaret's grave marker, the simple granite stone that had marked her final resting place, lay in pieces on the basement floor. The creatures had desecrated even the dead, violating the one thing I considered truly sacred. Rage and grief overwhelmed me in equal measure, and I fell to my knees among the fragments of stone that bore my wife's name. The message was clear. This had been my punishment for fleeing, for abandoning the territory that the creatures had claimed as their own. They had taken everything, my home, my possessions, my memories, even the marker that honored my wife's memory. Nothing remained of the life Robert Patrick had built except ruins and the bitter knowledge that some battles cannot be won. I spent less than an hour in that devastated house, gathering only those few items that had somehow survived the systematic destruction. Margaret's wedding ring, which I'd left on the nightstand and found miraculously intact.
I've been waiting so long. Let's open it up and see what we got. Wolverine, Deadpool, World War III. We're going to have this on Whatnot all month long. Let me show you how you can get your hands on these. Download Whatnot and look at all the live shows happening. Let's take a look at one of my favorites.
Beneath a pile of torn photographs. A single family Bible that had been overlooked in the chaos. The .306 rifle, which I discovered broken in half, but still recognizable as the weapon that had belonged to my grandfather.
Mm.
As I prepared to leave for the final time, I noticed fresh footprints in the dirt around the house. Massive, clearly defined prints that couldn't have been more than a few days old. They were watching me even now, observing my reaction to their handiwork from the safety of the forest. The thought that they might be planning another encounter sent me running for the truck with an urgency that bordered on panic. The drive back to Chicago passed in a blur of conflicting emotions. Relief at escaping the ranch alive warred with grief over everything I'd lost. The physical destruction was devastating enough, but the violation of Margaret's grave had cut deeper than any material loss. These creatures possessed not just intelligence and strength, but a capacity for cruelty that spoke to something fundamentally evil in their nature. I never reported the destruction to the authorities. How could I explain that my house had been demolished by creatures that officially didn't exist? The insurance company would demand evidence of the cause: wind damage, vandalism, fire, none of which applied to my situation. I was completely alone with knowledge that I couldn't share, couldn't prove, and couldn't escape. Michael was shocked by my appearance when I returned to his apartment. The brief trip to Montana had aged me visibly, adding new lines to my face and a hollow quality to my eyes that spoke of trauma beyond description. When he asked about the condition of the ranch, I told him the house had been badly damaged by weather and vandalism, that it would cost more to repair than the property was worth. The lie came easily, too easily, but the truth would have destroyed what remained of my credibility. Sarah flew to Chicago the following week to help finalize the sale of the ranch. A real estate agent specializing in remote properties agreed to handle the transaction site unseen, marketing it as a fixer-upper for buyers interested in wilderness living. The asking price was low enough to attract immediate interest, and within 2 months, the deed was transferred to a young couple from California who planned to build a sustainable homestead on the land. I never warned them about what lived in the forest. How could I? They would have dismissed my story as the ramblings of a senile old man, just as the forest ranger had done months earlier. Besides, perhaps the creatures would leave new owners alone, would respect different boundaries than those they'd established with my family. It was a cowardly hope, but hope nonetheless. The money from the sale allowed me to purchase a small condominium in a suburb of Chicago, close enough to Michael's family for regular visits, but independent enough to maintain some dignity. I filled my days with volunteer work at the local library, helping visitors research genealogy and local history. The work kept my mind occupied and provided human contact that helped push back the isolation that had nearly destroyed me in Montana. But the nights remained difficult. Urban sounds, sirens, traffic, the rumble of elevated trains couldn't completely mask the memories of wood knocks echoing through silent forests. Every shadow between buildings reminded me of massive shapes moving through moonlight.
Oh, so good.
Sleep came only with the aid of prescription medications that left me groggy and disconnected during the daylight hours. 3 years have passed since I abandoned the ranch to whatever claimed it from the wilderness. In that time, I've learned to function in a world that has no place for the truth I carry. I smile and nod when people speak of Bigfoot as folklore. When television shows treat cryptid encounters as entertainment, I've become skilled at changing the subject when conversations turn to unexplained phenomena or mysterious disappearances in national forests. But I monitor the news from Montana obsessively, searching for reports that might indicate the creatures have expanded their territory or encountered new victims. Last spring, a backpacker vanished in Glacier National Park under circumstances that the
Under circumstances that blah 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 blah. Under circumstances. the scenes. No, that's cool. I just ate a smoothie 3 o'clock in the morning. That's crazy. Oh, shit. Freezing this bitch. My window. Man, I'm cold. Oh, shit. Oh, I'm back. Good, motherfucker, very good. My hands getting my hands so cold. Go ahead and change that though. Remakes be crazy, they be crazy. My fucking smoothie was so good. I don't think there's no weed in this bitch, so we not gonna inhale this smidge. I'm not tripping. I am cool with that. Three, let's go two. Ooh. can break me down another day. Let's go to 2. It's crazy how them motherfuckers still. How to save your drum patterns. How to save your drum patterns in Logic. No, not Logic. I'm not on Logic. In Initial Slice. What is this? Am I finished with
Authorities
the big
couldn't
fix?
explain. His campsite was found destroyed, his equipment scattered across a wide area, but his body was never recovered.
Wait,
The
what?
official report blamed a bear attack, but the description of the damage reminded me if it had been overturned, it's... All the bullies wanted to sleep with Quinn's girlfriend, Jennifer. They questioned his manhood and even mocked his dead parents, simply because he was the only powerless kid in a school full of superheroes. But one day, Quinn reached the end of his rope and challenged Troy, the mightiest hero at his school, even if it meant his death. Stay down. I'll make sure your cute girlfriend will be screaming my name tonight. Quinn heard all over, but he picked himself up and faced the 7-foot-tall Troy. To many, Troy was the handsome star superhero of the academy. To Quinn, he was his worst nightmare. Where's Jennifer? Quinn asked. Clearly not by your side any longer. After I've beaten you, by midnight I'm sure she'll have forgotten who you are. Talentless talent. I may not have any superpowers, but what I have with Jennifer is real. Troy levitated into the air. Balls of fire danced above both his palms. If you can defeat me, I won't lay a finger on Jennifer again, even if we both know she'll be begging me for it. Quinn could not contain his rage anymore. He lunged at Tony with nothing but his naked fists. Troy was thrice his size, literally, but Quinn fearlessly attacked. He swung his fist in the middle of the arena boxing ring, but Troy simply smiled. A blast of fire shielded Troy and sent Quinn flying. Before Quinn could rise, Troy leapt into the air and slammed his body down on Quinn. He put the weak freshman in a chokehold. Look who's shown up, Troy whispered in Quinn's ear. Quinn's eyes darted out of the boxing ring, where he found Jennifer looking back apathetically.
We're done, Quinn. I'm with Troy now.
Why? We've been friends since we could walk. We've been dating for 10 years. I thought everything was good. Why did you cheat on me?
Everything was good. Did you know how difficult it was being the girlfriend of the biggest loser in the academy? You're powerless, Quinn. Look at yourself. You can't protect yourself, much less put up a fight. This was your last chance to prove yourself against Troy. But look at yourself. What a pathetic showing.
This isn't right, Jennifer. He was losing consciousness, but he still refused to tap out. He had some fight left in him. But then a flaming fist slammed into his face. And the last thing Quinn remembered was Jennifer turning away. Disgusted. Everything went black. Quinn had lost the match in humiliating fashion. But little did any of them know the tables would be turned very soon. He woke up in the school's infirmary the next morning in a lame brown uniform. Later that night, battered and bruised, Quinn reached outside his dorm room. He felt something poking on his leg. He yanked the jewelry box from his pocket. It was his grandmother's, perhaps 50 yards. I tracked the sounds through the windows, watching for movement in the darkness beyond the reach of my security lights. Whatever was out there was taking its time, studying my defenses, looking for weaknesses in my preparations. The footsteps would pause for long minutes, then resume in a different location, gradually tightening the circle around the house. By 11 o'clock, I knew I was in immediate danger. The sounds of movement had grown closer, and I could see shapes shifting in the darkness beyond the floodlight's range. Massive bipedal figures that moved with fluid grace despite their enormous size. When one of them stepped into the light's periphery, I caught a glimpse of dark fur and eyes that reflected the illumination like polished metal. I grabbed my go bag, checked that the 44 Magnum was secure in its holster, and headed for the back door where my pickup was parked. The keys felt slippery in my sweating hands as I fumbled with the lock, every second expecting to hear the crash of breaking glass or splintering wood as the creatures finally made their move. The truck started on the first try, a small miracle that probably saved my life. I threw it into reverse and backed away from the house without turning on the headlights, using only the dashboard illumination to navigate. When I was 30 yards from the building, I flicked on the lights and saw them. Two massive figures were emerging from the forest, moving toward the house with purposeful strides. In the headlight beams, they were even more terrifying than the trail camera had revealed. 9 feet tall and covered in dark matted fur, with proportions that suggested immense physical power. Their eyes reflected the light like mirrors, and their movements carried an intelligence that was unmistakably conscious and deliberate. They paused when the headlights hit them, turning to stare directly at me through the windshield. For a moment that lasted an eternity, predator and prey regarded each other across 30 yards of open ground. Then one of them raised its arm. Decades of life in the forest with screaming warnings I couldn't ignore. The forest was too quiet, the air too still, the shadows too deep. Even the wind had died to an unnatural calm that reminded me of the moments before a tornado touches down. I checked my weapons for the 100th time, confirmed that the pickup's keys were in my pocket, and reviewed my escape route. If something happened during the night, I'd grab my go bag and run for the truck without looking back. The ranch could be rebuilt. My life couldn't be restored if I lost it to whatever was stalking me from the trees. Darkness fell like a curtain, bringing with it the familiar sounds of wood knocks echoing through the forest. But tonight the pattern was different, more urgent, more aggressive. The knocks came in rapid succession, answered immediately by responses from multiple directions. Whatever was out there was communicating with others of its kind, coordinating something that would happen soon. Around 10 o'clock, the vocalizations began. Deep, guttural calls that raised the hair on my arms and sent primitive fear crawling up my spine. The sounds were definitely language, structured, purposeful, intelligent, but unlike anything in human experience. I counted at least 3 distinct voices, possibly more, suggesting that a group of the creatures had gathered in the forest of my property. Then the footsteps started, heavy, deliberate, bipedal footfalls circling the house at a distance of perhaps 50 yards. I tracked the sounds through the windows, watching for movement in the darkness beyond the reach of my security lights. Whatever was out there was taking its time, studying my defenses, looking for weaknesses in my preparations. The footsteps would pause for long minutes, then resume in a different location, gradually tightening the circle around the house. By 11 o'clock, I knew I was in immediate danger. The sounds of movement had grown closer, and I could see shapes shifting in the darkness beyond the floodlight's range. Massive bipedal figures that moved with fluid grace despite their enormous size. When one of them stepped into the light's periphery, I caught a glimpse of dark fur and eyes that reflected the illumination like polished metal. I grabbed my go bag, checked that the 44 Magnum was secure in its holster, and headed for the back door where my pickup was parked. The keys felt slippery in my sweating hands as I fumbled with the lock, every second expecting to hear the crash of breaking glass or splintering wood as the creatures finally made their move. The truck started on the first try, a small miracle that probably saved my life. I threw it into reverse and backed away from the house without turning on the headlights, using only the dashboard illumination to navigate. When I was 30 yards from the building, I flicked on the lights and saw them. Two massive figures were emerging from the forest, moving toward the house with purposeful strides. In the headlight beams, they were even more terrifying than the trail camera had revealed. 9 feet tall at minimum, covered in dark, matted fur, with proportions that suggested immense physical power. Their eyes reflected the light like mirrors, and their movements carried an intelligence that was unmistakably conscious and deliberate. They paused when the headlights hit them, turning to stare directly at me through the windshield. For a moment that lasted an eternity, predator and prey regarded each other across 30 yards of open ground. Then one of them raised its arm, not a paw, but a hand with opposable thumb, and pointed directly at me. The gesture was so human, so deliberately threatening, that my blood turned to ice water. I floored the accelerator and tore down the ranch road without looking back. In the rearview mirror, I could see the 2 figures watching my retreat, standing motionless in the headlight glare until darkness swallowed them. Only when I reached the main forest road did I dare to breathe normally, and even then my hands shook so badly I could barely maintain control of the steering wheel. The 37-mile drive to Millerville had never seemed so long.
Let's find out what strangers do when they have $0 in their bank account. What do you do when your bank account gets low?
I normally borrow from friends or overdraft.
What if I told you there's a free app that can spot you up to $200 fee-free?
I feel like it's too good to be true.
Well, if you download the Chime app and sign up for an account, you can use their Spot Me feature to...
A free shadow between the trees could hide another predator. Every curve in the road might reveal something standing in my path. Twice I thought I saw massive figures moving through the forest parallel to the road, keeping pace with my truck despite the rough terrain. But when I slowed to get a better look, the shapes vanished into the darkness like smoke. I reached Millerville at 12:47 a.m. according to the clock above the post office. The town was dark and silent, its handful of streetlights creating small pools of security in the wilderness night. I pulled into the gas station and sat in the truck for several minutes, letting my heartbeat return to something approaching normal. The familiar sight of buildings and pavement was incredibly reassuring after the primal terror of the forest road. Tom Kowalski lived in a small house behind the general store. I hated to wake him at such an hour, but I needed human contact. Needed to hear a rational voice to anchor me to reality. When he answered my pounding on his door, dressed in a bathrobe and clearly annoyed at being disturbed, I must have looked like a madman, wild-eyed, sweating despite the cold, babbling about creatures in the forest and narrow escapes. But Tom could see that something had genuinely terrified me. He brought me inside, made coffee, and listened while I described the events of the evening. When I finished my account, he sat in silence for several minutes, studying my face as if trying to determine whether I was lying or simply insane. Finally, he suggested that I drive to Hamilton in the morning and stay at the motel there until I could arrange more permanent accommodations. I spent the remainder of the night in Tom's guest room, but sleep was impossible. Every sound outside, wind in the trees, a car passing on the highway, sent adrenaline surging through my system. When dawn finally broke, gray and cold, I felt like I'd aged a decade in a single night. The mirror in Tom's bathroom showed a stranger with hollow eyes and deep lines that hadn't been there the day before.
Okay.
He actually came and killed a koi yesterday and ate it. A little newborn. So that's why he's got a taste for blood right now. He is like seeing. So he's seeing red right now. He's kind of like a psycho. Like I'm only really kind of crazy does with this guy. I wouldn't trust.
If you have a 700 plus credit score, you qualify for Chase's new program where you get access to 100. One to discuss swim forward.
You could. Whether he's fast enough is a question. It's either run up to 55 kilometers. So really tired afterwards too, so mountains affect you super. Like this is extreme fighting.
Oh, let my shit die. Alright, it's time to go to sleep. I'm happy with that. Till we meet again. Hasta la vista, babies. Something to snack on.